Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm very excited to have all of you with Denali from Space ID, and I am Xaba from BNB Chain's team focusing on ecosystem initiatives. Hey, Denali, how are you?
Hey, Saba, good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good as well. Thank you for asking. So could you give us a brief introduction about Space ID and what have you been up to recently?
Thank you. We started a Space ID project since March this year, and our target is to build a decentralized ID system for everyone in the Web3 space. We are cross-chain and censorship resistant, and users can register the domain name and identify their resources on chain in a very easy fashion. So we are still building it, but our mainnet should be released soon. I will demo our testnet today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very excited to see the demo and also that you guys are doing this on BNB. It was very long awaited.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me start. So now our testnet is live on BSC testnet. To use our website, you firstly need to connect your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can search the domain name. Let me check if wallet is the BSC testnet. Okay. Now this name is can be registered. If you want to search some name that is not registerable, you can search here, and you can take a look at the detail of this already registered name. But now let's come back and try to register name. Okay, then in this registration page, you can search how many years you want to use your domain name, and the price will be calculated accordingly. We charge the domain name based on how long you register. Now let's try to register for 1 year. Okay, the registration is on the way. Wait a few seconds, then the transaction will be finished. Okay, it's finished. Then you can go to your profile page and see the domain name registered like this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually our website is different from the our contract or website is different from the ENS in the way that is registration is very fast,
Mm-hmm.
because we have changed some of the registration logic in our contract to make sure that it will only take one step to finish the registration. In addition, our registration our domain name system has taken into the multi-chain and cross-chain requirement into consideration from the day one. So you can see that this website is in the testnet is only happening in the BNB testnet, BNB chain at the moment, but soon we will roll out the multi-chain support in the following quarter. Yes, so that's it.
Very exciting, cool demo. Thank you so much for showing us. It's very straightforward and, as you mentioned, very quick. Yeah, impressive. And why did you guys start off with BNB domain names? And what potential do you see in BNB chain? And are these BNB names, is BNB decentralized?
Oh yeah, this is very good question to start off. Um, in the very beginning, Space ID domain name will only be on BNB chain with the BNB suffix. Since the domain name is resolved on chain, it will be decentralized. It will be the standard BNB chain identifier to be integrated into the host ecosystem. But BNB domain is just the first product of the Space ID. Space ID will start from there and ultimately become a domain name service that coexists across the blockchains. And .bnb domain name suffix will just be .bnb, and .bnb domain name will have the no reserved field, no correct character limits. But at the beginning, users can only register for names that have at least 3 or more letters, and we will support multiple languages. So, and .bnb definitely, because we have a good collaboration with the BNB Binance chain, and then we believe that the BSC has a very high quality user base. So that's the reason why we started from here. And definitely, our name services will be decentralized, and users has full control over their own data.
Very cool. Very cool. And can you explain, please, the difference between UID, SID, and DID, and which one does .bnb belong to?
Oh, to our understanding, UID is a Web 2 concept, which is pretty centralized username system. Basically, the centralized server can change and leak the UID information. And Space ID is a form of the decentralized ID, aka DID.
Mhm.
So .bnb is a subset of the SID and a form of the DID.
Understood. Understood. Perfect. Um, it's possible to get BNB domain using other services like Trust Domain or .bit. Why should I choose Space ID?
Um, to answer this question short, it's not possible to get a .bnb domain using Beat services,
Mm-hmm.
other services like a trust domain. But Space ID can integrate other domain name services. Basically, if user use Space ID, it will be very easy for them to manage all the resources and manage all of the domain names.
Understood. Understood. What if a .bnb name from SID and, for example, a .bnb name from Trust Domain are overlapping? How does the Space ID team deal with this issue?
Yeah, I think that this is one of the most important issue that we take into consideration. We want to make sure that Space ID would not overlapping inside our ecosystem. But in the overlapping case, it only matters if you integrate partner, for example, Trust Wallet, into two domain name services at the same time. But how the domain resolve it depends on which domain name services user chooses. For example, if you use the trust domain services, it will resolve to that name. But if you choose to use our services, there will be no duplication. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Gotcha. I'd like to ask a bit more about your competitors and about your differentiator. What are the different types of Space ID compared to ENS, unstoppable domains, and other competitors? What are the features that make it more valuable and unique than your competitors?
I think those projects are no doubt our competitors, and they did a very good job in their own lane.
Mm-hmm.
However, most of the identifiers today are limited within different blockchains and dApps.
Mm-hmm.
Unstoppable domain, on the other hand, is centralized. We think the core of Web3 is to become a gateway between decentralized identities, or DID, and the physical digital world. To accomplish that, it only makes sense that your identity is comprehensively recognizable and consistent throughout the space. And that, I think that's what makes us unique. So in summary, we're a little bit more centralized because we want to control something on the domain name services. In this way, that we can expand our domain name services smoothly to multiple chains and cross chains. right? If you purely centralized on layer 0, it will be very hard to roll out at the very beginning. But we are much, much more decentralized and unstable domains, which means that finally users will have full control over their domain name services and the resources under the domain name services.
Gotcha. Thanks for the answer. How does cross-chain work, and what mechanism does Space ID use to ensure that the domain names on different chains will be the same?
Okay, yeah, now it comes to the technical part. I'm pretty glad because we have Yoda, which is an Oracle network that ensures the uniqueness of the names registered across the multiple chains. To coordinate the cross-chain domain registration and resolution, we cannot answer what other chains will Space ID support because Space ID is a protocol. Any chain that supports the Space ID protocol will be able to be included in the ecosystem, which Space ID is chain agnostic. We have the mechanism to make sure that only one domain name will be registered, no matter which chain it is in.
Cool. So my next question would be kind of what you have shown us before on the demo, but in case that some people from our audience missed that part, I'll ask it again. So, how much will it cost to get a domain name, and how long will the registration process take? And also, is there an expiration date?
Okay, yeah. So to clarify, in my previous demo, the
Yeah.
prices is only shown as the test purposes. We have already designed a domain name pricing strategy, but definitely what you are seeing in the testnet is not the same as the pricing that will be released finally. And the public registration price of the Space ID domain name will be based on the length of the domain and how long the domain is registered. We will release the details soon.
Cool, cool. How does a Web3 user benefit from having an SID domain in general, though?
Oh yeah. As we have mentioned, Space ID is chain agnostic, decentralized, censorship resistant, and open sourced, and user can benefit a lot from our SID domains. I will give you some examples. In scenario one, so column Luke can be registered as Luke's SID across all Space ID supported blockchains. And maybe in scenario two, and Yuga Labs can acquire the TLD of Yoga and open for registration for their community only. If Luke is one of the users can register this very own Yuga column Luke domain. And Meatspeed style developers can also register the domain Yoga column Meatspeed and map the domain to Meatspeed smart contract on Ethereum. In this way, the Meatspeed NFT with the ID 1024 on Ethereum can be configured to display as Yoga column Meatspeed 2016 and 24. So this is basically some of the scenarios that have exist that user can benefit from the Space ID. Definitely, there will be a lot of other use cases, but in my summary, I think Space ID, we visualized, and our final goal is becoming the first entry for the Web3 users to enter into the space.
Perfect. How does a Web3 user benefit from having an SID domain in general? Oh,
Oh yeah, okay. Um, I think there is a problem with the Web3 space at this moment. For example, when Web2 and Web1 enter into the space, you know, the number of the pages and number of the applications in the Web2 are growing exponentially, right? A lot of users have their name registered in different places. They have to serve over different websites, and it's very hard to manage this information. Similarly, in Web3, we have the same problem, right? In 2019, we only have like uh, um, one chain or one or two chain that support this smart contract, and very few dApps living on it. But nowadays, we see a lot of chains growing exponentially. Even in the Ethereum network, you can see a lot of different type of the side chains. You can see different type of the roll-up chains, and a lot of the information is in the Web3 space, right? And it's very hard for users to manage these resources belong to them and search seeking the information they want. So Space ID started from a domain name service, but basically we're actually aiming to become the indexer of the Web3. We started from the very important information that addresses information to identify the resources, but later on we will include the NFTs, include the tokens into our ecosystem, and the users can basically manage the resources and seeking the other resources very easily by just visiting our website and search whatever they want. You can see that our design is very similar to Google. We only have one search bar. It does not necessarily mean that you can only search domain names. You can also search the other resources. But this is our final goal. I want to make it simple for ourselves and for users. The first entry for the Web3, that's what we want to do.
Understood. Okay. Um, by the way, there are a few questions on YouTube in the comment section, and I just like to ask our audience to don't hesitate to ask your questions, because Denali won't be here forever. So please ask them ASAP so we can ask at the end of the end of the session. So my next question would be, what does the roadmap currently look like for Space ID?
Yes, stay tuned for the upcoming months. We have our testnet under the very active development. We have already showed that, and everything is on our path. And we will release the detailed plan in the future very soon.
Cool, cool. Very excited to hear that. And I would like you to explain a bit more about what you were just mentioning before. That does Space ID have any plans to work on anything else besides decentralized identity? This was my original question, but you partly answered that already. Could you elaborate a bit more, please?
Yeah, the reason why I have already answered your question is that I'm pretty excited. So that I already, yeah. So we have to release the version one of the Space ID testnet based on our internal alpha testing results. We have made some modifications and improved the user experience on version two, and that's what we have. I have shown in the very beginning of this video show. Our version 2 is about 80% finished, and you should expect to see it on mainnet soon. In addition, other features such as the auction marketplace, NFT resources aggregator are under development. Users should see SID as their Web3 resources index and the first entry into the Web3 world. It's not just the decentralized ID. We have much more than that. When we can use, we have a lot of the imagination space.
Very cool. So some questions from the audience is, why domain names are really needed if we can just use addresses?
Yeah, I think this is for some of the users, they might not understand why they need a domain name, and because they use the addresses in their daily basis. As I mentioned before, when a Web3, the applications and other websites are penetrating into our daily life, it's just not a toy anymore. You can see that you want to use it every day in transactions like sending money to people, in playing games like trading the NFTs you have just gained in your game, or doing some social networks, such as like chatting in the Web3 space, posting some information online. you will find that it will be very hard to manage all of these tasks by just using the addresses. It is very easily making mistakes. Not to say that there will be some people who has like hundreds of the addresses in the actively use in a daily basis. If there is no resource identifier or name identifier, it will be a big mess in that Web3 space. So that's the reason why we want to do this work, and we want to bring the ease of life to the user of the Web3.
Gotcha. Another question from the audience is that when a domain name expires, what happens? The user have to pay again at that time, or before at this when the subscription starts, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think I can answer it in a technical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So if the domain name expires, nothing will happen if no other user register the same name. The
Mm-hmm.
expiration of the domain name only means that the gate for other people to register this same domain name will be open. If nobody else is taking over your domain name, the resources that this domain resolved to will be the same as before. So you don't need to do anything. But if you don't extend the domain expired domain name, you will not have the right to do perform any actions on this domain anymore. Which means that if you want to change like abc.bnb to a new address, you cannot do that. And any other people who has the who reclaim this domain name will have the right to change the names.
Very cool. Um, and are there any restrictions regarding the domain name, like language restrictions that only English could be used, or yeah, is there any?
I think regarding the languages, we don't have this registration be, because our encoding is very general. We recognize the encoding globally, but we do see some of the problems in the ENS domain names. For example, ENS does not forbid registration for the zero width characters, which will confuse a lot of people because you can see some of the names such as the Vitalik that has empty spacing in this name, and it will be displayed the same as a Vitalik
Mm-hmm.
.th. So I think the only registration we have now is to forbidden this type of the zero width characters to protect resources of our users.
Yeah, very beneficial. Amazing. Uh, these are all of my questions and the audience's questions. Thank you so much for taking the time for this AMA and attending this. Thank you for the audience as well. And there is going to be a whitelist campaign on BNB Chain soon, so stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.